Hello again, Mazda MX5. It's an absolute brilliant car, great fun to drive, never goes wrong, and this one has now got nearly 60,000 miles on the clock, desperate need of a fairly major service. This is my midlife crisis. Many of you probably know that I drive a Ford Mondeo diesel, which is a sensible car. Yes, I've got the joy of a motorbike, but when a bloke gets to a certain age, he needs a sports car, and this was it. Anyway, I bought this car and then discovered that I couldn't actually get full no claims discount on two cars. So the only solution was that I had to put this car in my wife's name. She owns the car, she insures the car, and every now and again she lets me drive the car. Basically, my wife can't wait until I have another midlife crisis. Anyway, let's get on with the servicing. So I've read the Haynes manual, and from that I've created a little checklist of everything I need to do, and I'm going to stick that on the windscreen. First job, let's change the oil. You will first need to remove the engine protection plate, which is by removing 5 10mm bolts. Use an 18mm socket set to get the sump plug out, and then let the oil drain into a container. Right, I'm going to use one of these cup spanners to get the oil filter out, and it's a bit awkward because it's actually in behind this cross member here, so I've got to use an angle joint as well in order to get on it, and an extension. So, which is, there we are, it's on. Now, just going to loosen it. Right, that's loose. So, I'll remove this socket part, position the drip tray underneath. Right, there it is, out. Right, so I'm just going to put a little smear of oil on the rubber of the new filter before I fit it. Okay, just in there for now. Bit more of a clean up. I usually only do these things hand tight, like that, and that's usually enough, and never had a problem. Not forgetting to put the sump plug back in, I then filled up with oil, checking the level as I went along. Once it was up on the dipstick, I ran the engine for just a few seconds to get the oil circulating and filling up the oil filter, and then recheck the oil level once again. After that, providing you've got no leaks underneath, put the engine protection plate back on. So let's get the air filter out, which is unclip, unclip, push back, and there's one air filter out. Going to put the new one in. Now it goes around this way. That's seated down nicely. Clip, clip, air filter done. So that's the oil change done, and we've also changed the air filter. Now you change the oil every 6,000 miles, whereas the air filter only gets cleaned every 12,000 miles and replaced at 36,000 miles, but I've just replaced it as a matter of course as we're coming up to 60,000. While we're in the engine compartment, we ought to check a few more things as well. So let's have a look at the power steering fluids here. This is the reservoir bottle. On the front, there's a little mark, and my fluid at the moment is sitting on just about maximum, which is great. Moving over to the back left is the brake fluid. There's marks on the side of the reservoir there, and mine's sitting just below maximum, which is perfect again. At 60,000 miles, the coolant and the spark plugs also get replaced. The coolant is a premix flavour called FL22, so I don't have to mix anything up. I just buy the premix, and I'm going to replace that later on as well. So water bottle is over here. Just open it up, and actually there's water in the top of that. Absolutely fine. The final thing to do is to have a quick look at the auxiliary belt as well, and just having a look and looking for any phrase cuts or anything, and it's looking very good as well. But the other question is, has the auxiliary belt stretched? Now there's a mark down the bottom there, and it's a little bit tricky to get to, and I suggest you use a mobile phone just to take a picture and have a look at the mark, or use a GoPro. I used a GoPro, and it looks like this, and providing the pointer is within the mark as shown, then everything's fine, and it is fine. So my belt is not stretched, it doesn't need replacing. So I think the next step then is to replace the spark plugs. I need to take the cover off to expose the tops of the spark plugs, so I'm going to take the dipstick out to start with. Just set that to one side. Now this should just lift off. That's nearly done. One more. Come on, pop out. There we go. So that's the cover away. And this exposes the coils. The coils are mounted on top of the spark plugs. So we've got 4 coils here. We've got the electronics connected in here, and the coil is retained by these bolts as well. So we need to remove each one of those in turn. So I'm going to start by unclipping the electronics, which you should be able to just press down on the connector and release it like that. Then the coil should just pull off like that. Now, because the spark plugs are recessed, you're going to need an extension bar to get into them. Also, I'm using a 10mm plug spanner as well. So, popping it in. And there we go. And there we are, first plug out. So the spark plugs I'm putting in are these TR5A1-13s. Quite an interesting looking plug. So they have a little spiky electrode on them as well. Now they're already preset, so you don't need to make any changes with feeler gauges or anything like that. But what I would suggest is you just pop it in the end of your socket like this, gently offer it up so you're feeling for any cross threading, but it should go in perfectly fine. And that's number 1 done. So I'm going to replace the coil pack. That presses on top. Put the bolt back in. Just nip that up. Gentle, gentle, gentle. That's it. And reconnect the plug. There's one done. three more to go. So this is the last one. Gentle tighten, like that. Reconnect the coil pack clip. There we go. Then all we've got to do is put the cover back on. And this is just a push fit, so down it goes. And then I'm going to put my dipstick back in again. That's the spark plugs done. So obviously servicing this car is quite a lengthy process. There's a lot to be done. I'm going to stop this video now because it's becoming quite long, and I'll come back with a part 2 in which I will change the coolant. I'm also going to replace the gearbox oil and the final drive oil as well, which all should be done at 60,000 miles. The final thing will be to also check the brake pads on the car as well and see whether they're heavily worn, and replace them if need be. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do videos just occasionally when I work on cars or motorbikes or anything that takes my interest basically. And so think about subscribing, give me a thumbs up, leave some comments. I always like the comments, good or bad. I read them, I reply to them. It's all good forum anyway. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now.